And with that mentality, no surprise looking over to our bracket that Brady Smith has made his way through the competition and in top 4, battling for his spot in the finals to face off against James Evan here. But one person in his way now, it's going to be Scott Iwafuchi. And when we're talking about, okay, don't use those silly little Pokemon, well, Scott has a silly little Pokemon. Looking at that Porygon 2 that has bode him so well here in Vancouver.
Does Scott still have the rose? That's what I want to know, if he's held on to Marcus's rose from earlier on in the day. But yeah, we see Scott's accomplishments over the last decade of VGC, having many top 16 performances to his name. This is by far his strongest performance at the regional level at top 4. Potentially could make it on further, but Brady Smith is a tough opponent.
He does have the rose, by the way. You can see it being held by the Alolan Marowak there. So definitely great that he's held on throughout the day. Looking at the team, though, we've gotten to see quite a few different elements of this team as we've gotten to see Scott a couple of times at this point. The Roaring Moon was a Pokemon that we got to see earlier on. Roaring Moon, I mean, lovingly or not so lovingly dubbed Roaring Mid. I mean, players get really hyped about this Pokemon sometimes, and other times really just, oh, it's so underwhelming. But Scott's definitely put it to good use, combined with a couple of other Pokemon that are also up and down with the usage. That Golden Go and the Porygon 2.
Yeah, I think the Roaring Moon has a bit more of a difficult matchup this time around against Brady, having both Chien-Pao and Raging Bolt. There's 2 Pokemon that are faster than it. We saw that Scott has attack booster energy on this Roaring Moon instead of speed booster, so it could be a really difficult matchup. The Porygon 2 not only does do solid damage after a download boost with those Terra Blast and Ice Beam, but it can also set the Trick Room, and if you can really punish Brady's fast Pokemon with Trick Room.
I love this, Scott. Fun fact, his team is special because he's using Pokemon he loves. There is definitely people that are going to take the quote and run and be like, you know what? I can be running this Pokeball and I can win a regional with it. I'd be mad impressed if you can.
I believe Elite Four Karen has the same sentiment, where use your favorites.
But honestly, when you're looking at a Pokemon like P2, which Scott has talked about, has been a Pokemon that he's used before and wants to make work. He's been trying different iterations of this team for a while, and it's obviously this work that he's put into the team, I think definitely is showing that he knows it inside and out. Going up against Brady, Brady definitely has world accomplishments of his own. Regional champion 2019 Daytona, regional champion Knoxville 2017, top 8 OCIC, and of course making it top 32 worlds in 2022. So definitely a very accomplished player, spent a lot of time into Pokemon, and is very close to getting on to that list of regional champion for this year. And this team, as we said, most of it's in that top line of the top usage. This is all the good stuff.
Yeah, this is very strong conventional Pokemon on Brady's end. You can see his fun fact here. Spends at least 30 hours per week playing Pokemon. And you can definitely see the amount of effort he puts into the game he gets rewarded for with so many strong, consistent finishes.
Talking about Scott knowing his team inside and out, Brady knows this format inside and out with hours like that. So definitely been boding him well. This is definitely going to be a great match here in top 4 as both of these trainers try and vie for that final spot in our grand finals here. Landorus Chien-Pao for Brady going up against P2 and Incineroar for Scott to kick things off.
Scott going with the tried and true Porygon 2 right away, and this puts it at a point that Porygon with that Eviolite held item makes it so bulky that it's very difficult to knock out, and even the chance of 2 potential attacks on Brady's end could be difficult to even try to knock out Porygon 2. You do also have Ice Beam into Brady's lander, so that's something Brady has to be aware of. But if Scott, with that special attack boost from the download, is actually quite the threat, either clicking Terra Blast or clicking Ice Beam here. So if Scott just wants to get some damage off, maybe even try to break Chien-Pao's focus stats, nothing wrong with trying to get a little bit of damage on turn 1.
That is going to be the Chien-Pao swapped out, Incineroar brought in, Intimidate onto the Pokemon on the opposing end, most notably going to be the Incineroar for this turn around. Protect from the Landorus, make sure that you're going to be keeping yourself safe from a fake out and potential follow-up from the Porygon 2, is that exactly what Scott has gone for. Great swap. Brady has the fake out pressure going on for next turn, and this Porygon 2 gets to do absolutely nothing.
And this is one of Brady's favorite positions as a balanced player, people that likes to have a lot of switching, a lot of pivot potential. Gets Incineroar on the field for free. No damage, has access to fake out, potential parting shot if you want. You can stop the Porygon from going for an Ice Beam, which means the Landorus Incarnate feels comfortable on this turn and isn't really threatened potentially by an Ice Beam on the other side.
Incineroar swapping out. Landorus coming in on the opposing end of the field as fake out going into the Porygon 2. No protect on the Porygon means it definitely is a safe target and a double up to start dealing with this very bulky Pokemon. Now, you do have aggression over on your end if you're a Scott. That Landorus could definitely fire off a powerful move like an Earth Power into the Incineroar on the other end, or could try and take the opportunity to try and set up.
Scott's in the big leagues right now in top 4 of Vancouver, so sometimes you want to go for a big aggressive play, forcing Landorus into an uncomfortable position with your own Landorus on the field. You either stay as a ground flying type and you are potentially threatened by the Ice Beam, and the Terrestrialization would mean you would then lose that ground immunity and could get hit by an Earth Power. So as this set goes on, I'd love to see Scott try to make some aggressive plays and make Brady not comfortable.
Well, at this point, swapping out the Porygon 2, Amoonguss coming in, and Terrestrialization, normally it is going to be something like that Landorus that feels pressured in front of something like the Porygon 2, but the Incineroar, knowing of the possibility of an Earth Power on the other end, Terrestrializing into goes. Earth Power, still going to be a powerful hit coming out from the sheer force Landorus, but it's not going to be enough to one-hit KO it. Critical hit into the Amoonguss, though. That will be another story.
That is really tough because Amoonguss could have been there on the next turn to redirect any attacks away. This Flare Blitz is going to be pretty strong into the Landorus, but with no critical hit, not enough to do knockout. The Landorus brings it down under half, and Scott's going to have to make an adjustment. He was trying to just make a slower paced match. Switch out Porygon, bring Amoonguss in, have Amoonguss do regenerator shenanigans, bring Porygon back to recover. You no longer have access to that. Scott has to go on the offensive in this spot, and he only has a half health Landorus, and the Porygon arguably is probably going to do more damage than the Incineroar will, because Brady is so good at pivoting his Pokemon around to use that Intimidate effectively.
Well, at this point, too, I'm just looking at the Landorus over on Brady's end of things. Like, if you can't get this into check right now, you are going to be in a pain of hurt. Porygon 2, since it's already been down to below half health, won't be able to have the opportunity to be firing off an attack before it's picked off itself. Even if you are getting that special attack raise on the download, and your own Landorus for Scott is already down to half health, which makes it volatile to either of the Pokemon on Brady's end. You can go for the recover. If you can get it off, it's going to be great, but that's a big if.
Yeah, it's definitely a really tough position. Obviously, critical hits are things that you can't account for unless Urshifu is clicking attacks. So it's something that Scott was not prepared for. His Amoonguss getting knocked out in one hit has definitely put him on the back foot here in Game 1. You know, at least the Landoruses are obviously the same Pokemon, so you are going to find out which of these Landorus are faster.
Swap out from the Incineroar. Rillaboom coming out on to the field. Very powerful Pokemon that Brady has here that can be off-putting some pressure as well. Fake out on the next turn as well. Grassy Surge will be setting the Grassy terrain, so you can make sure you have priority on those Grassy glides. As Terrestrialization coming out from Scott's end of things, that will be the Landorus this time into that Patent and Poison type.
And just trying to get a little bit more damage, changing that typing as well. You lose the Ice weakness for whenever Chien-Pao wants to come back onto the field.
And it also is going to be helping the damage output from this Sludge Bomb. And into the freshly swapped in Rillaboom, it is still not going to be enough for the KO. Assault Vest putting in the most work, but Porygon 2 also holding on. It's going to get the chance to go for this recover and gain back half health.
Porygon 2 hangs on at 2 HP, and through recover and grassy terrain is going to end up pretty much as healthy as it was the prior turn. So Brady, you play 30 hours a week of Pokemon. Was that a damage roll, or do you know if this Landorus's Earth Power cannot knock out the Porygon again? If you target Porygon for the next turn, then that leaves his Landorus free to go for an attack. However, Rillaboom enduring that Sludge Bomb was so crucial. Thanks to the Assault Vest, without the AV, Rillaboom surely would have been knocked out in one hit. Now you have access to fake out at least one of Scott's 2 Pokemon on this turn. So if Brady wants to use that fake out into one slot and then have Landorus target the other, you can arguably make sure that Scott doesn't get any attacks off this turn.
Porygon 2 feeling pretty good about the health that it was able to recover on this turn. It's going to be swapping out, bring the Incineroar in at this point, making sure as well you're not going to be taking a strong Grassy Glide priority at this point, and getting that attack drop over onto the Rillaboom as Landorus will protect this time around, keeping it safe, and you have the fake out pressure next turn to make the most of it. as fake out into the Incineroar is only going to be good for a little bit of chip, but a passive turn means Brady can go ahead and get a substitute set up on this Landorus.
That's right, you punish a passive play like that, where now Landorus, not only is it going to be difficult to knock out in general, but you're going to have to waste an attack into the substitute just to make it so that you can try to do damage after the sub breaks. And this Rillaboom is slowly recovering HP every single turn so that you can, at some point, if you don't deal with the Rillaboom, who has Grassy Glide, you can try when Porygon comes back. If you ever feel like you're in a tough spot on the speed interactions, you always have that priority on the Grassy Glide. So I think with Scott switching in this Incineroar, it's very important for him to decide, is it important to stop Rillaboom from going for a strong grass or grassy terrain boosted attack, or do you try to break the sub?
No Grassy Glide coming out from the Rillaboom, and Landorus with an Earth Power from Scott will be enough to be picking up the KO onto the Incineroar. Landorus on Scott's end, safe behind a substitute for now. And with that, it's going to be Scott down to his final two Pokemon. U-turn coming out, hitting into the Landorus, so not very effective. Taking that damage won't be enough to break the sub. It's pivot now for Brady, and he still has so much power hidden in the back.
Yeah, the Chien-Pao is still sitting there in the back, of course, Incineroar as well. So Incineroar is going to be the one that swaps in here, since you can try to fake out the Porygon on the other end. Porygon's not going to be able to recover up more on this turn because he's going to have to wait till the end of the turn to come in here. So we see that it is essentially at half HP. And unfortunately for Scott, his Incineroar almost effectively got one hit KO. The only damage it took was a fake out the last turn before, and then Earth Power just completely took out the rest of its HP. So I think Brady in a 4-2 position right now with access to the fake out on the other side, and his own Landorus still behind a substitute, is in such a strong commanding position to take this first game.
Well, at this point, looking at it, you have to be breaking the substitute on the other end somehow. And with only one Pokemon to be able to do it, you won't be able to do that double up. Instead, going to be prioritizing this Incineroar. Make sure that you can eliminate it. Try and get the Pokemon count a little bit more towards even. At this point, consistently, safe to say that Scott's Landorus is trained to be faster than Brady's, but Brady now will have a chance to fire off an attack in return. Earth Power hitting into the Porygon 2. We saw last time it wasn't quite enough, and it still won't be. 3 HP this time, but the Porygon 2 so low, and still there's still a Chien-Pao in the back.
Yeah, you can't recover on Porygon because you got faked out on that turn, so Scott was not able to attack at all. And arguably the Incineroar going down is perfectly fine because you get a full health Chien-Pao with Focus Sash intact to come onto the field. Since Porygon is so low at this point, it's almost not much of a threat, where Brady can try to put all his aggression into the Landorus on Scott's side, break that substitute with Chien-Pao at first, and then let the Landorus try to clean up the knockout. But that will leave your Landorus vulnerable if, as we've seen the last couple of turns, Scott's Landorus has outsped. So if Scott can break the substitute on Brady's side and you leave the Porygon alone, would have been a problem.
I think it's pretty big if Brady has a lot of resources well on Scott's end. The opportunities are dwindling away, running out. Sludge Bomb will be attacking, but it's only the Landorus against the 3 Pokemon account of Brady and Chien-Pao with Focus Sash. Sure, you bring it right down to it, but there is still so much to get through, and Scott won't be able to break through it on this first game.
Yeah, so at least Brady gets rid of the Porygon. You know Ice Beam is not going to be a problem anymore. Earth Power will be enough to break that substitute. And with a 3-to-1 Pokemon advantage right now with a half-health Landorus as well. Just Scott's in such a tough position. You got to take these next couple of turns, next couple of seconds to think about your game plan for Game 2.
With that Terra Poison Landorus being able to be hit from the Earth Power this time around. And you have to just think about what you can be changing up in this next game to try and bring this into a Game 3. Sucker Punch, more than enough to be taking care of this Landorus, and as it falls, Brady Smith claimed the first game of the set.
Yeah, that was a very well-played game by Brady, showing this team off and how you can switch Rillaboom in at the right time and have fake out U-turn into Incineroar and have fake out pressure again. Time and time again, we see the best players in the game having multiple supportive options and multiple pivoting options on their team to put them in the best advantageous position that they can. So unfortunately for Scott, he did get crit on the Amoonguss very early on into the game. Who knows what would have played out differently differently. But regardless, the Landorus was still doing so much damage that 2 Earth Powers would have knocked out Amoonguss either way.
And focusing on things that can be changing in this next set, there was a huge turn where Brady was able to take advantage of a protect on the Landorus over on Scott's end and go ahead and set up a substitute. And then it was a constant pressure game on Scott's end because he was a turn late to get his Landorus set up, and he's still facing a barrage of attacks coming out from Brady, and it was just a tough position. That's the thing about Landorus is once it gets up to substitute, having to just double into that, and the fact that it's so difficult to break is a tough time. This Porygon 2 definitely was holding on through it, but when it was stuck with just the, okay, well, I gotta recover and get back out, it also wasn't putting in the impact. The Pokemon on Brady's end just did so much damage to it.
And this potential, just this archetype, this matchup for Scott shows that Golden Go is in a really tough spot against most of Brady's team, right? You have Chien-Pao with Sucker Punch, Earth Power on Landorus, Flare Blitz with Incineroar as well. It's really tough to bring Golden Go, who has really been, as Scott even mentioned in his interview with Gabby, one of the most crucial members of the team. So does Scott try to risk it and bring either Golden Go or Roaring Moon, which were the 2 Pokemon that sat out from game 1? I can understand a Roaring Moon angle if you're able to set it up, since he does have access to Dragon Dance. If you get Dragon Dance and booster attack speed from the booster energy as well, that can really negate the Intimidates that could be coming from the other side from Incineroar.
That's a lot of eggs in one basket, though. If you're trying to make sure you can Rage Powder away to let your Roaring Moon set up, it could be paying off in spades, but it could also be just that one thing. If you have an unfortunate turn or Brady with a heads-up play can punish you for, it could also be the losing play in this. Going into our game 2 of the set, adjustment coming out. Raging Bolt for Brady with Incineroar by its side, where Incineroar facing off against it with Porygon 2 for Scott.
Yeah, the Incineroar mind games are going to begin here right away on the first turn of game 2 as they both have access to Fake Out. So do you want to take the risk that your Incineroar is faster and fake out the opposing side? Or if you're Scott, would you rather fake out Raging Bolt just to make sure it's not able to click Calm Mind on this turn? This is that Calm Mind leftovers set that this variant of Raging Bolt, which can be really difficult to deal with, especially when the big heavy hitters on Scott's team are special attackers. Porygon 2, Landorus, and Incarnate. If you can get a couple Calm Minds up with leftovers, with grassy terrain from Rillaboom, can make it so it's very tough to take out the Raging Bolt.
This Scott's Incineroar was first for the Intimidate, first on the Fake Out here, but hitting into that slot means the Raging Bolt left unchecked. That will be a setup, and it'll be a Calm Mind, a boost to his special attack and the special defense. And that one special attack boost, sometimes it's all it takes for the Raging Bolt to do some devastating damage here.
Fortunately for Scott, this is Dragon Pulse on Raging Bolt's end instead of Draco Meteor, so you gotta wonder how the +1 special attack Dragon Pulses will fare into both of Scott's Pokemon, because obviously the Draco Meteor would be significantly stronger, but if your Landorus is able to endure the Dragon Pulse into that slot, you can break through with a lot of damage from an Earth Power or a Sludge Bomb.
That's also a Raging Bolt that can be sticking around, though, because you don't need to be swapping out to reset the boost. Once you're at the +1, you can stick around at that +1, and you're committing to this Raging Bolt. That is going to be the Airy Terrestrialization on this turn. You can be super weak to a potential Sludge Bomb into that slot. Knockoff onto Brady's Incineroar. That'll get rid of the safety goggles.
Yeah, so now the Incineroar on Brady's side has the chance to act if you went for a parting shot, would be able to swap out for free with. Sure, you lost the safety goggles, but you really didn't take too much damage on the swap out. Now Brady can bring something else in from the back. We haven't seen what he has revealed yet, but that safety goggles could be important later to if he doesn't have access to it, if Scott has the Amoonguss there to try to Rage Powder or Spore it away. But there's the Chien-Pao. That's so important for Incineroar to be slower on Brady's side, because that means that the Chien-Pao takes no damage and keeps its Focus Sash.
And then Chien-Pao coming in, something like an Ice Spinner into the Landorus. I mean, Scott still has the Terrestrialization. This could be the time to be committing into it, and we'll see just that. But the Chien-Pao definitely can still offer so much pressure, and still something like a Sacred Sword into the Incineroar will deal a lot of damage, as it will be that Landorus to go ahead and click that Poison Terra.
Yeah, Poison with the additional boost to its damage on the Sludge Bomb into the now Fairy typing on the Raging Bolt. This +1 special defense means it's going to probably take it pretty well, but that's a Thunderclap.
The Thunderclap into the freshly Terra'd and followed up. That's going to be more than
Brady
enough
called
for the
Terra, because as a
Calling.
ground type, Thunderclap would have missed.
Calling the Terra to try and stay straight past this Ice Cold Crash and it goes wrong. Up one game in the set, you can take the risks like that and it's going to be paying off. That was a huge damage coming out from Scott's end, and it's absolutely gone.
That's a great point, that when you have the advantage in a game, you can afford to be riskier.
And at this point, too, with the Mungus in the back, these are a lot of supporting Pokemon on Scott's end of the field. The Landorus, you have so many different ways to try and be supporting it, but with the Landorus gone, the Amoonguss coming out, I mean, these are Pokemon that you can try and make things work, but this looks terrible right now.
I mean, Brady, kudos to Brady knowing your calculations if your Raging Bolt can survive the Earth Power after your special defense boost, because then you pin the Landorus on Scott's side. Either you stay in your normal typing and Ice Spinner is a one-hit KO, 4x super effective, or he changes his typing there, you endure the Earth Power, and then the double target knocks it out with Thunderclap.
It was just so safe. If the Ice Cold Crash hitting into it, if you didn't Terra, if he does Terra, you just pin it either way. It's just so good coming out here. This point now, it won't be a KO from the Ice Cold Crash onto the Amoonguss, parting shot into the Raging Bolt. An attempt to salvage things coming out from Scott's end. Porygon 2 is going to be coming out. It's still full, but with the +1 Raging Bolt on the other end and a Chien-Pao that can follow up with a big Sacred Sword is definitely a lot. Raging Bolt with the Dragon Pulse will KO the Amoonguss. Scott down to 2.
Yeah, it's a really tough position for Scott, as you effectively don't really have a great way of hitting this boosted Raging Bolt that is recovering HP every turn thanks to the leftovers. If Brady also has Rillaboom in that 4th slot in the back, once the grassy terrain comes onto the field, it's going to be recovering even more damage every turn. Scott has Incineroar on this turn to try to fake out the Chien-Pao and break that Focus Sash, but when you target into Chien-Pao, that's leaving Raging Bolt completely wide open to either click another Calm Mind or just go for damage with Dragon Pulse.
At this point, with just the Porygon 2 and the Incineroar is the way to deal the damage. I don't think Scott can get his way out of this one. The double attempt into the Chien-Pao, but it's swapping out into the Incineroar, and that will be an attempt on the Incineroar on Scott and protect from the Raging Bolt as well. All Brady has to do here is play safe, and surely he'll find himself in the finals. Flare Blitz, just a tiny bit of damage.
And this is what I'm talking about, that Brady's always controlling the pace of the game. He's perfectly swapping Incineroar in every single time. This is something that Brady has done for years at this point. He just took both of those attacks with complete ease.
At this point, to Brady with the freshly swapped in Incineroar, you do have the option to fake out to the Raging Bolt to be firing off a powerful attack for essentially free here. And all Scott can do is look at, hey, a Flare Blitz that you're just going to be hitting yourself in recoil with, or a parting shot to try and mitigate the damage done. And it won't even be able to do either. That'll be the fake out to flinch it this time around, and Raging Bolt, Dragon Pulse into the Incineroar, keeps chipping away at it.
It is going to recover some HP because it fell under half, so you have the Citrus Berry to recover 25% of the HP. And this Ice Beam into Raging Bolt, you might want to go for the freeze if you can try to freeze his whole team and slowly whittle the health down, but no, he doesn't get it.
That'd be the craziest match of all time, and we have seen some crazy things this weekend. I don't think this one is going to be happening. You're in top 4, you got to be playing it out. You are down the game, and these are your last chances to try and secure anything. But I think it's done. I think it's dusted.
Yeah, I think even the Incineroar, if he wants to continually go for parting shots for multiple turns for Scott, it's just going to take so long, and the Dragon Pulse damage will continue to rack up. And he get a crit too.
Yep, leftovers knocked off, doesn't matter. That is going to be the retaliation right there. Critical hit for it's just Porygon 2 against the world, and Flare Blitz firing off into it. It might be a slow victory, but surely it is inevitable. Burn just to add a little bit more on top.
Yeah, Burn obviously not mattering in this position, but this Ice Beam into Raging Bolt, as you can see, is probably like a 10-hit KO or something. Well, there's no leftovers anymore, so maybe it's a little bit less than 10 hits, but it's 4-1 with just this little Porygon 2 that could, and the Pokemon that's been so important to Scott, but he's not going to be able to pull it off.
The Porygon 2 that couldn't at this point. 2 greatly played matches by Brady Smith, and with that, he's gonna find himself here in the finals of Vancouver Regionals. Expertly played, as you said, always commanding and controlling the pace of the match, and is definitely gonna be a fantastic finals if we get to see more play like that.
Yeah, that was a masterclass from Brady on momentum and punishing your opponent for not necessarily their mistakes, right? Because Scott is making decisions off of, he doesn't have all the information. He doesn't know the speed tiers. He doesn't know what Brady is going to prioritize on the turn. So it's not like he's making mistakes, but you're punishing passive play when you're able to go for the Earth Power into the Amoonguss on swap and get a beneficial critical hit, or you know he's going to protect and swap so you get a free substitute without taking damage. Get Chien Pao into the field without losing the focus sash. These are things that against a player of Brady's caliber, you can't afford to allow him to control the pacing.
And it was tough too, because the thing is you say it like it's easy, right? Whereas it's not. The Pokemon that Brady has on his team
tough.
And the way that he was playing it too, the constant swapping in and out of the Incineroar, so you had the fake out when you needed it. Because at the same time, sure, it's so easy to say, well, don't let the Landorus get set up. Don't let the Raging Bolt get set up. Well, the fake out can just make it so you have to be giving that turn over, or the pressure that could be coming out from the opposing end, you have to protect. You're just going to get punished for that. And I think it was a really, really tough situation. I think it was very well played by Brady. This team is really, really strong. And I have to commend Scott for making it to this point in the competition, because still, this team was incredible, and top 4 it's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously Scott can be disappointed that he came so close to the championship here in Vancouver, but from how the weekend started to this has been a great weekend in the making for the last decade of VGC to get 3 victories on stream, right? 1 yesterday, 2 today, and then losing here in top 4, adding the high new accomplishment to your list, and hopefully we can see Scott at future events throughout the season for continuing to perform well.
Yeah, and we'll get to see a little bit more coming out from Brady Smith here, is now in the grand finals going up against James Evan. And this is incredible. We have not had a single game 3 here in our top cut.
Well, they're saving the best for last, Sierra. Everybody else went 2-0 so that we can have as much time as possible, and hopefully we can get 3 games between Brady and James.
This will be incredible. 2 very accomplished players, rich stories. And I mean, for Brady, took a little bit of a break for a bit and then has been back grinding the scene. I mean, over 30 hours of Pokemon per week. He's been putting in that work.
That's a part-time job.
That's the same amount as some people do work on a week, right? And that's like minimum 30 hours. And when you're looking at James, he has been playing the circuit for so long at this point, ever since his seniors, going through Masters and coming so close to a regional win this year. He's 1 match away from taking that spot.
Yeah, we talked about at the beginning of the show yesterday how many great trainers made it across the border here into Vancouver from North America, and maybe the total player count is lower than some of the other regionals we've had this season, but the high caliber of players we had here is just as strong. And Brady Smith and James Evans, arguably 2 of the strongest trainers that you could have had out of the entire pool of the Masters division here this weekend.
Especially too with what we've gotten to see from them on stream. Like, both of them are playing super well, super like out of their mind. I mean, there's no coincidence that going through this bracket, these are 2-0 victories. I mean, they have an agenda. They're here to win.
No, absolutely. I think that's obviously we love a game 3. We love the excitement and we love the drama of it, but it's almost just as impressive and just as entertaining when you see a player just completely steamrolling through the competition. They're making the right plays every turn. Like Brady just in that showcasing against Scott there, he's putting multiple threats on the board every turn to deal with.
What's also, I think, impressive about this match, sometimes with our finals, players will have played against each other at some point during the tournament. If it wasn't day 1, then sometime during the day 2 Swiss rounds, because once you're looking at those top players, those numbers get dwindling, whereas these 2, Brady and James, haven't played against each other once. So this is going to be a completely fresh slate, completely fresh matchup. It is super, super exciting. We want to know, of course, who you're rooting for in our grand finals here. And you can do so on a variety of platforms. Hashtag play Pokemon. We might be able to feature your post on stream before the day is done. And of course, make sure to follow the channel if you're watching on Twitch or YouTube, so you're notified for all the great events coming up, because we do have EUIC around the corner too.
Yeah, it is quickly approaching in just a couple of weeks, and I think it's an absurd amount of players that are registered for EUIC. I see all the discourse online. There are so many people, so many excited players in this era of Scarlet and Violet in Pokemon, and it's great to see what's going to happen in London.
It'll be a good time. It'll be a good time. But you know what's also a good time is walking away from Vancouver with a good chunk of money. So at this point, both James and Brady have secured themselves $4,000, playing for an additional $2,000. That is an expensive match of Pokemon coming up here, but super, super exciting stuff.
Yeah, maybe if you get first place, you open your booster packs and you pull a alternate art Iron Crown, and so you make even more money than you get on top of your earnings from winning a regional.
We'll just in the interview afterwards with whatever winner, like, should we open the packs? Like, do you want to
Can
see
we
what's
help?
Can
You
we
can
help?
keep them. I love the endorphin rush of opening a pack.
All right, we have a finals to get underway with. We have to take a short break before we're back with the grand finals here at the Vancouver Pokemon Regional Championships.